My own blood sat around the dinner table and called me a worthless leech while I'd been secretly covering every single one of their bills for half a decade. I'm 34, my name is Clara Madden, and 3 Thursdays ago my phone buzzed with a video from my aunt that wasn't meant for me. No text, no whoops, just a file. It was a family dinner I skipped because I was buried in year-end reports for a client. I hit play, expecting cat videos or a birthday reminder. Instead, I got my brother doing an impression of me hunched over a calculator, my sister laughing into her wine glass, and my mother, my own mother, waving her hand like she was shooing a fly and saying a single sentence that cracked my entire life open down the middle. For 6 years, I had been the invisible checkbook, the mortgage on the house I grew up in, the payments on my brother's pickup truck, my niece's private school tuition, my sister's apartment rent, all of it, month after month, like a direct deposit from my sanity. And there they were, deciding I was the family joke. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I did the only thing I've ever been good at. I opened my laptop and started running the numbers. By the time the next billing cycle came due, every person at that table was going to find out exactly what they'd been laughing at and exactly how much it was about to cost them. Welcome back to Karma Court Files. If you've ever been the reliable one, the person nobody thanks until the money stops, this story is going to hit different. Hit subscribe and drop a comment. Before we start, you'll want to be on the record for this verdict. It was a Tuesday night, late enough that the only light on my street was the glow from my own kitchen window. I was eating cold leftovers with one hand and reconciling invoices for a local auto shop with the other. That's my life. I'm a forensic bookkeeper. I find money problems before they find my clients, and the work follows me everywhere, including to my dinner table. My phone lit up against the salt shaker. A text from my aunt Diane. No words, just a video file sitting there like a little blue time bomb. I figured it was a stupid pet clip, or maybe a reminder about my mom's upcoming 60th birthday party. I wiped my fingers on a napkin and tapped the screen. The audio came through before the picture even focused. Laughter. I knew every voice in that recording. My mother's low please chuckle. My brother's loud beer-soaked bray. My sister's quick agreeing giggle, the one she uses when she wants you to know she's on your side. The camera was aimed across a dining room table I sat at 100 times. It was the dinner from the previous weekend, the one I'd missed because I was closing out a quarter for a construction client. They'd gone ahead without me. They always did. I turned the volume up. My leftovers went cold. I didn't notice that my brother Derek was standing up, glass in hand. He does that. Turns anything into a toast. He was doing an impression of me, shoulders curled in, tapping at an imaginary keyboard. Here's to Clara, he sighed, and the table was already grinning. 34, single, no kids, just her little spreadsheets. A total failure who happens to be really good at counting other people's cash. My sister Brooke laughed into her Chardonnay. Be nice, she said, in the exact tone people use when they mean the exact opposite. And then my mother, Elaine, at the head of the table where she's always been, lifted one hand to settle them down, like she was the reasonable one. Oh, leave her alone, she said. She's fine. She should be grateful, at least all that number crunching gives her. Something to feel important about. The whole table erupted. Real laughter. The easy, cruel kind that only happens when nobody in the room thinks the target will ever hear it. I watched my Aunt Diane on the edge of the frame. She laughed too, a beat late. Then her eyes dropped to her plate and stayed there. I sat in my dark kitchen and waited for the tears. Because that's what you do, right? But they didn't come. Something else came. Something cold and precise. The same feeling I get when a column of numbers finally balances after hours of hunting for a mistake. I reached out and froze the video on the exact frame where my mother's mouth was still open around the word grateful. I looked at it for a long time. Then I reached for the one thing in my life that has never lied to me. My ledger. Let me tell you who I am before you decide how to judge what I did. Next, I'm a bookkeeper. I do the books for a construction company, a dental practice, and a small bakery. That would have gone under 2 years ago if I hadn't found the embezzlement the previous accountant missed. I taught myself most of it, then got certified at night while working days at a gas station. Nobody handed me anything. I earned every client by never being off by a penny. People trust me because numbers don't have feelings, and professionally neither do I. That's where I shine. People are the part I never figured out. When I'm thinking hard, I tap my pen against my thumb. Tap, 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 a little metronome. My coworkers tease me about it. I was tapping that night without realizing it. Here's the confession I have to make, or the whole story falls apart. I have a weakness, and it's not softness. It's the opposite. I carry things before anyone even has to ask. A bill comes due, I pay it. A problem appears, I solve it. Alone, at midnight, at this same kitchen table. I never learned how to need anybody, so I made myself the person everybody needed. I told myself that was strength. But what do you call strength that only runs in one direction? My family had been running on that one-way street for 6 years. I just hadn't sent them the bill yet. It started with the house. 6 years ago, my father died suddenly, the way the strong ones sometimes go, and he left behind the only home I'd ever known, plus a mortgage he'd been quietly losing ground on. The bank sent those yellow envelopes you hide from your kids. My mother couldn't refinance on her own. She hadn't had a job in 30 years. Derek's credit was a disaster zone. Brooke didn't have provable income. So the bank looked at the 4 of US and found exactly one person whose signature made the math work. Mine. I sat down with a loan officer and I bought the house. My name on the deed. My name on the new mortgage. My signature on every page that mattered. My mother got to stay in her home. She never had to pack a single dish. That's what I wanted. Didn't do it to own anything. I did it so she wouldn't be the widow who lost her house the same year she lost her husband. Everyone in the family knew I handled the house. That was the word they used. Handled. Like I called a plumber. They say it at parties. Oh, Clara took care of the house thing. Light. Breezy. A footnote. Not one of them in 6 years ever asked whose name was on the title. They didn't want to know. Knowing would have meant the house wasn't really my mother's anymore, and the story they liked best was the one where Elaine had held everything together all by herself. I let them have that story. I was the footnote who paid the mortgage on the home where they all gathered to laugh at me. The house was just the foundation. After that, the rest came like water through cracks in a dam. Derek's truck loan after his landscaping company went under for the second time, and the bank was about to repo the one thing he needed to work, my niece and nephew's private school tuition. Brooke insisted they couldn't possibly switch schools mid-crisis. Brooke's rent, after her husband walked out, and she just needed a year to get back on her feet. Year turned into 4. And my mother, of course, the steady drip, electric bills, prescription copays, property taxes on the house I already owned. Every month, the same ritual. The first of the month, I sit down with my coffee and my spreadsheet, and I move the money. Click, transfer, confirm, click, transfer, confirm. Derek, Brooke, the school. The utility company. My mother. I never made a show of it. I never posted about it. Never brought it up at dinner. Never once said the words out loud. I just did it the way you water a plant. Except this plant had grown teeth. I had a separate column for each of them in my private file, but I'd never run the total for 6 years. I never highlighted the whole column and let the sum appear at the bottom, because some part of me knew that number would be a mirror, and I wasn't ready to see what was in it. Adding it up felt like admitting something. So I didn't. Not until the night my family told me on video that I should be grateful for the privilege of paying for everything. I know what you're thinking. How does a smart woman, a woman who does this for a living, let something like that go on for 6 years? Is a fair question. I've asked it myself at 3 in the morning more times than I can count. Let me be clear. I wasn't blind. I tried. About 3 years in, I sat Derek down and asked gently if he could pick up even part of the kids' tuition now that he was working again. My mother heard about it before I'd finished my coffee. She called and cut me off. Sentence. Your brother is drowning, Clara. You're the strong one. Don't you dare make this about you. So I dropped it. Another time, I asked if we could all sit down together and talk about family finances. Just talk. The meeting I scheduled had exactly one person at it, me. I kept paying, but not because I was a fool. I kept paying because the alternative had a face. Stop the tuition mid-semester and a 9-year-old gets pulled out of school in front of his friends. Stop the mortgage and my mother, a widow, loses the house where she buried my father. Those weren't abstractions. They were real people who would really be hurt, and I was the only adult in a room who seemed to understand that. So I told myself the story everyone in my position tells themselves. I told myself that underneath the taking, they loved me, that the gratitude was just buried somewhere. I couldn't see it. That was the lie I lived on. And the video, when it finally came, was merciful in exactly one way. It took that last lie away from me for good. I didn't sleep much that night. In the morning, I still made coffee, because I'm not the type who lets the ground fall out from under a Tuesday. I sat down at the table. I opened the laptop, and my hand stopped hovering over the spreadsheet where I keep the recurring transfers, the ones that fire off on the first of every month like clockwork. The next round was due on the 1st. I counted the days on the calendar. By the fridge, 19 of them. And then I noticed something that made the back of my neck go cold in a way the video hadn't. The 1st of the month fell on a Saturday. This year, the same Saturday as my mother's 60th birthday party. The party I was paying for. The party where the whole family and half the town would gather at the church hall to celebrate Elaine Madden, the woman who held her family together through hard times. I sat there with my coffee going, hold for the second night in a row. And for the first time in 6 years, I did not click transfer. I opened a fresh tab instead. I pulled up 6 years of bank history, every account, every statement, and I started to read it. The way I read a client's books. When something smells wrong. I want to be honest with you about what this was. I wasn't planning revenge. I genuinely wasn't. I was doing an audit. There is a difference between those two things, but by the time I was finished, I'm not sure even I could have told you where one ended and the other began. That weekend, I watched the video. Again, not to wallow, to audit it, the same as the numbers. I scrub it frame by frame, pausing on each face the way you flag a suspicious transaction. I wanted to know exactly who was in this, and how deep. Derek was the loudest, no surprise. He was the one on his feet doing the impression. Brooke was the chorus, laughing on cue the way she's laughed on cue her whole life. To stay on the right side of whoever's holding court, my mother was the conductor. One raised hand, and they all settled. One dry remark and they all laughed. She should be grateful. She didn't even raise her voice to land it. And then there was Aunt Diane, half out of frame, holding the phone. She was the one filming. She laughed when the others laughed a beat late, every time her eyes drop into her plate afterward. But here's what stopped me cold. Diane filmed this, and then Diane 3 days later sent it to me. No. Oops. No, sorry. Just the whole thing, straight to the one person. It would gut. I sat back in my chair and tapped my pen, slow, thinking I couldn't tell yet what that was. A fumble of fat fingers on a small screen, or a woman who couldn't say the words out loud, handing me the evidence and hoping I'd do what she didn't have the spine for. I didn't know which, but I knew I'd find out before this was over. The strangest part was how normal everyone stayed. 2 days after, I'd watched my family call me a failure. My phone buzzed with the usual traffic, like nothing in the world had shifted. Derek. Hey sis, truck insurance is due. Can you grab it this month? Kinda tight. Not a hello, not a thank you, just the ask. The way you text an ATM. Then Brooke sent me a link to a dining set she found. $1,100 with a little note. What do you think for the apartment? What I thought was that she was asking my permission to spend my money and didn't even know that's what she was doing. Then my mother called. I let it go to voicemail and listened later. Clara, honey, have you booked the caterer for the party? People are RSVPing. Don't leave it to the last minute. And don't you dare embarrass me at my own party. You know how you get quiet. People will be watching. People will be watching. I almost laughed out loud in my empty kitchen. She had no idea how right she was about to be. Not one of them knew I'd seen the video. Not one of them suspected. The woman who paid for everything had finally sat down and started counting, and that I came to understand was the only real advantage I'd ever held in this family time. For the first time in 6 years, I had time, and they didn't know the clock was running. So I did what I do. I built a clean record, not a rant, not a journal full of feelings, none of that. A ledger. I opened a fresh workbook, and I gave each of them a tab. Derek, Brooke, the school, the utilities, my mother. Then I went back 6 years, statement by statement, and I logged every single transfer. The date, the amount, the recipient, The reason, where I knew it. I didn't round up to make it look worse. I didn't editorialize. I just recorded the truth, line by line, the way I'd record it for a client facing an audit. Because that's exactly what this was, even if the auditor and the accused happened to share my last name. My pen tapped against my thumb. Steady now, no tremble at all. There's a calm that comes over me. When I'm putting messy things into order, the world stops being a place where my family laughed at me and becomes a column of figures that add up or don't. I printed a test page just to feel the weight of it in my hand, black, ink on white paper, dates and dollar amounts. No adjectives, and I'll tell you what I understood. Holding that page under the kitchen light, I wasn't building a weapon. A weapon is loud, and I was done being loud adjacent to people who only ever heard me when I said yes. I was building a mirror, and the cruelest thing you can hand certain people is an accurate one. I drove out to Aunt Diane's that Sunday, told her I was returning a casserole dish, which I was because even now I bring the dish back. She made coffee. We sat in her kitchen, and I let the quiet do the work, the way I do with a client who's hiding a number. Finally she cracked. You saw it, she said, not a question. I didn't answer, which was its own answer. Her hands wrapped around her mug. I knew it went to you after I hit send. I didn't take it back. She looked at me then, and there was something real in her face, something close to shame. I should have stopped them years ago. The first time they started in on you, I should have put my fork down and said something. She shook her head. I just didn't want to be the next one they laughed at. And there it was, the whole rotten machinery of that family in one sentence. Everyone too scared of the table to defend anyone at it. I asked her, quiet, was that the first time? She didn't meet my eyes. No. Honey, that's just dinner. That's how they talk about you when you're not there. She told me the Clara jokes were a regular feature. As dependable as dessert. I thanked her for the coffee. I understood her. I really did. She done me the one kindness no one else in that family ever had. She'd let me see the truth. But understanding a person and being able to lean on them are two different ledgers. Diane had handed me the proof and then washed her hands of what I'd do with it. I drove back to my own house knowing I was, as always, on my own. I ran a small test. I wanted to see how fast the warmth turned when the money slowed, even a little. So I paid Brooks rent 3 days late. On purpose, just 3 days, a nudge. The response told me everything I needed to know about where I stood. My mother called within the hour. Not Brooke, who the rent was, actually for my mother, the manager of the family's accounts payable. Clara, what is going on with you? Her voice had that bright, hard edge she uses when she's already decided you're the problem. Brooke's landlord called her 3 days late. The whole family is talking about how strange you've gotten, distant, cold, ever since you got busy with your little clients. You've decided you're too good for us. I held the phone away from my ear and just looked at it. 3 days. 6 years of being on time to the penny, and the first time I'm 3 days late. I'm cold. I'm difficult. I think I'm too good for them. Money was never the problem with you, Clara, she said, landing it like she'd rehearsed it. Your attitude is. I told her I'd take care of it, and I hung up. I sat very still in the quiet. 3 days late, and suddenly I was the villain of the family. So I let myself do the math on what 6 years of perfect, silent, on-time payment had actually purchased me. The total came to nothing, not a thank you, not a defense at a dinner table, nothing, but the standing right to keep being on time. That was the night I went to the file cabinet. I keep my real records in a gray metal cabinet in the corner of my home office, the boring kind, the kind that holds the actual spine of a life, bottom, drawer, back of the hanging files, a thick folder I hadn't opened in 6 years, the closing packet from when I bought the house. I carried it to the kitchen table and spread it out flat under the warm yellow light. No blue screen this time, no laughter, just paper. There it was, page after page. The deed recorded with the county grantee listed in plain black type. Clara M. Madden. The mortgage note. Borrower of record, Clara M. Madden. Signed and dated 6 years back. The closing statement. The escrow disclosures. The title. Insurance. The whole architecture of ownership. And my name on every low-bearing page. I sat there and ran my thumb down the deed. I'd always known this, of course. I'd signed it, but knowing a thing and looking at the proof of it laid out on your own kitchen table are different. The house everyone in my family called Mom's house. The house where they had gathered to laugh at me. The house my mother told the whole town she'd held onto through her own strength. That house was legally, completely, undeniably mine. I had been the owner and the tenant of my own family's contempt at the same time. I'd paid for the roof they sat under while they decided I was a failure. I tapped my pen once, set it down on the deed, and I felt the last of the fog burn off. I wasn't confused anymore about what I was going to do. I just had to decide how to do it so cleanly that no one could ever call it cruelty. The next morning, I did the thing I'd avoided for 6 years. I went back to the workbook, the one with a tab for each of them, and I highlighted the whole column, every transfer, every account, and I let the spreadsheet do what spreadsheets do. The total appeared at the bottom of the screen. I'm not going to say the number out loud here because the number isn't really the point, and anyway it was large enough that saying it would just sound like bragging, and I have spent my whole life not bragging, but I'll tell you, it was a house several times over. It was a retirement I didn't have. It was bigger than I feared, and I feared a lot. And here's the strange part. I didn't cry about the money. Money was just numbers, and numbers don't hurt me. What got me sitting there with that total glowing at me was the time. 6 years of Friday nights I said no to, dates I canceled to finish someone else's month-end vacations I never took because the first of the month always came. I cried for about 4 minutes. I let myself. Then I wiped my face with the back of my hand the way my father used to, and I was done, because crying is just a feeling. And a feeling isn't the plan. I finally understood what my mother had meant on that video. She said I should be grateful, and you know what? She was right that someone in this family should be grateful. They were grateful, every single one of them was deeply, quietly grateful for exactly one thing. That in 6 years, I had never once added up the total. If you've ever sat with a number, you were afraid to add up the real cost of being everyone's safety net, then you already know how I felt at that table. Stay with me. What I did next wasn't loud and it wasn't cruel. It was just honest. The first real test came from Derek. His truck insurance text was still sitting there, the one with no hello in it. Before I'd have paid it inside an hour and never mentioned it. This time, I waited a day, then I typed back one line. Calm, no anger in it at all, because anger would have given him something to push against. I'm not able to cover that this month. That was it. No explanation. No apology. I'd learned a long time ago that a clear sentence with no excuse attached is the hardest thing in the world for a certain kind of person to argue with. My phone rang before I'd set it down. Derek, of course. The sweetness was gone in about 4 seconds. Since when? Since when? Are you not able? You got those little businesses paying you. What are you saving up for to feel important? I stayed quiet, which made him louder. You think you're better than us now, sitting there with your spreadsheets. And then, because he couldn't help himself, because the video had told me exactly who he was, he said it. Don't act like you're not the pathetic one here, Clara. There it was again. Pathetic. Same word from the same mouth, except now I was on the phone to hear it instead of watching it on a screen. I let the silence sit. Then I said, okay, Derek, and I hung up. One sentence. I'm not able to. It cost me nothing, and it cost him everything. We both knew exactly which of us was about to feel the difference. After that, the phone didn't stop. It turns out a family that never calls to ask how you are will call constantly the moment the money flinches. Brooke first, texting that I was being so selfish right now that Derek had enough going on without me playing games. Then a cousin I hadn't heard from in a year, suddenly concerned about the family being divided. Then my mother, the heavy artillery. She didn't call this time. She sent a text, and I think she sent it in writing because she wanted me to have to read it twice. After everything this family has done for you. That was the whole message. Reid is standing at my kitchen counter, and I'll be honest, almost laughed. After everything this family has done for me, I actually opened my workbook and looked, just to be sure I hadn't missed something, some column where the help flowed the other way. There wasn't one. Everything this family had ever done for me fit comfortably in the empty space below the totals. I set the phone face down on the counter, and I didn't answer a single one of them. Not Brooke, not the cousin, not my mother. Instead, I reached into my desk and took out a stack of plain manila envelopes, the heavy kind, and I set them on the table in a neat row. I smoothed the top one flat with my hand. I didn't know yet exactly what words I'd put inside them, but I knew the shape of what I was building now. And for the first time in 6 years, the quiet in my house felt like mine. I thought hard about how to do it, because how you do a thing is the whole thing. I could have blown it all up in the family group chat. Posted the totals, named who'd taken what, let them read it on their phones and feel the floor. TILT. I could have called each of them and said the cruel true things I'd been swallowing for 6 years. I could have made it loud. The loud was their language, not mine. Loud keeps you in the room, arguing, explaining, defending, and I was so tired of being in the room. So I chose the opposite. I made a plan with 4 parts, and I wrote each one down so I wouldn't soften on it at the last second. 1. I signed the deed of the house back to my mother and set up the mortgage for her to assume, so no one could ever say I'd taken her home. 2. Every voluntary payment, the truck, the rent, the tuition, all of it would stop on the 1st. 3. I'd hand each of them an envelope with their own complete record inside and a single page telling them when the payments ended, and for the most important part, the part 1, underlined twice, I would not argue. I'd say my piece, set down the envelopes, and walk out the door. I wasn't going to fight them, because fighting keeps you tied to people. I was going to balance the account and leave. And the calendar, bless it, had already chosen the day for me. The next payment was due on the 1st. So was my mother's 60th birthday party. I decided to let the date make it look like fate. I know some of you are already shaking your heads thinking I should have just texted them the spreadsheet and been done with it. Stay with me, because the way this lands in person is the whole reason. I'm telling you, if you've ever had to set a boundary with people who only respect you when you're useful, you'll want to see how this goes. I didn't do any of it on emotion. I'm a bookkeeper. I do things in the right order, or I don't do them. First, I called a friend of mine, a CPA I trust, and ran the whole shape of it past her. No names, just the structure. Then I sat down with a real estate attorney here in town for an hour. I paid her for that hour like I pay for everything. She walked me through it plainly. The house was mine, free to deed. However I wanted, I could transfer it to my mother. But she warned me, and I'd already known this. Deeding the house didn't erase the mortgage. The loan was still in my name unless my mother could qualify to assume it or refinance it herself. If she couldn't, she'd have to sell or find a way to carry it. The price tag came with a gift. The attorney looked at me carefully when she said that part, the way people do when they're checking whether you understand what you're choosing. I told her I understood completely. I wasn't trying to trap my mother. I was trying to hand her finally the actual weight of the house she'd spent 6 years pretending she carried alone. Let her feel what it really costs. Let her decide what to do with it as a grown woman, the way I'd had to. As for the rest, the truck, the rent, the tuition, those were gifts, the lawyer confirmed, and gifts can stop the day you decide. They stop. No notice required. Though I give fair notice anyway, because I'm not the one who behaves badly in this story. I had her draw up clean transfer documents. I wrote a single plain letter to go with each envelope. No feelings in it. Just facts, and days. Facts have never needed my help to hurt. The party machine ground on around me, and the whole thing ran on one quiet assumption that Clara would handle it. Of course, I was paying for the hall. I'd put the deposit down on the church fellowship hall months ago, back when I still thought silence and money were the price of being loved. I was paying the caterer too. And there was a second assumption, layered under the first, the one that made my jaw tighten every time I thought about it. Everyone expected me to say a few words. The dependable daughter standing up at the milestone birthday, toasting the strong mother who'd held the family together. My mother had been telling people for weeks. I heard about it secondhand, the way I heard about most things. Elaine says Clara takes care of everything, a neighbor told me at the grocery store, beaming like it was the loveliest thing. She's so proud of you, honey. Says you're her little accountant. Her little accountant, who likes to feel needed. I smiled at the neighbor and said something gracious and pushed my card away, and in the cereal aisle, I made my decision final, because here's what they'd done without realizing it. They had built me a stage, a room full of witnesses, The whole extended family, the neighbors, the minister, all gathered and waiting for me to play the Grateful Daughter one last time. They'd handed me a microphone, an audience, and an expectation. I decided I'd keep the stage, I'd keep the audience, I'd keep the microphone. I would just change the script they'd written for me into the one that was true. The day before the party, I went to the hall to check on the setup, and I got one last reminder of exactly why I was doing this, as if the universe wanted to make sure I didn't lose my nerve. Derek was there, hanging a banner, beer, already in hand at 2 in the afternoon, holding court for a couple of the younger cousins. When I walked in carrying a tray of glasses, he grinned at them and jerked his thumb at me. "Careful," he said, loud enough to carry. "Don't upset the ATM, she's been touchy lately." The cousins laughed, uncertain, the way you laugh when you're not sure if something's a joke. Brooke was there too, arranging flowers, and when I started to tell her about a billing question with the caterer, she cut me off with a little wave. "Clara, nobody wants to hear about invoices at a party. Read the room." My mother breezed past all of it, fussing over Brooke's dress, adjusting Brooke's collar, never once looking my way, as if I were part of the catering. And in the corner, watching all of it, was my cousin Haley, 19 years old, home from her first year of college. She caught my eye, and her face did something the rest of theirs never did. It flinched. She'd seen it. "Don't upset the ATM." He'd said it like a joke, tossed it off the way he tosses everything off. But I stopped finding Derek funny somewhere around year 3. A joke is just cruelty wearing a party hat, and I'd been the punchline at this family's table for as long as I could remember. Tomorrow, for the first time, I'd be the one who got to finish the joke. Haley followed me out to the porch of the hall while I caught my breath. She's a good kid, the only one in the next generation who texts me on my birthday without being reminded. "Aunt Clara," she sighed, hugging her arms against the cold. "Are you okay? They shouldn't talk to you like that. It's not funny." I looked at her for a second, 19 years old. And she was the first person in that entire family in 6 years to ask me if I was okay, not what I could pay for, not whether the caterer was booked, just, "Are you okay?" It nearly undid the whole plan, that one question. Not because I was scared, but because I suddenly didn't want her to see what I was about to do and think it was anger. Think it was the family's same cruelty, just pointed in a new direction. "I'm okay, Haley," I told her. "I'm better than I've been in a long time, actually." She frowned, not quite believing. They take you for granted. You're the only one in this family who ever shows up for me." And that right there was the thing that locked it in, because I realized the kindest thing I could possibly do for that girl wasn't to keep absorbing it quietly so the peace held. The kindest thing I could do was show her, calmly in front of everyone, that you are allowed to stop, that you can love people and still refuse to be their punching bag, that walking away with your head up isn't the same as starting a war. I squeezed her hand. "Come find me tomorrow," I said. After I say my few words, that last night I sat at my kitchen table and put it all together. The envelopes were lined up, heavy manila, one for each of them. Into my mother's, I slid the new deed transferring the house into her name. The letter from the attorney explaining the mortgage would now be hers to assume or refinance. And her ledger, 6 years of every dollar, totaled at the bottom. Into Derek's, his own column, the truck, the insurance, the loans. I'd quietly cleared, with the date, the payments would end into Brooks, 4 years of rent, and a dining set's worth of what do you thinks, and the same date. I sealed each one and wrote the name on the front in my steady bookkeeper's hand. My pen moved, without a tremor. I signed the letters, one tap of the pen between each signature. The sound filling the quiet kitchen like a slow clock. My phone sat face down on the table the whole time, dark. I never once turned it over to watch that video again. I didn't need to. I had it memorized. And anyway, the laughing was about to stop mattering. 4 envelopes, no speech to memorize, no big confrontation, rehearsed in a mirror. I spent 6 years saying yes to these people without ever saying a single word about it. I figured I could say no the exact same way, quietly, completely in writing, so it couldn't be argued with. I turned off the kitchen light and went to bed, and for the first night in 3 weeks, I slept the whole way through. The church hall was full by 4 o'clock. It looked the way those rooms always look, folding tables in rows, a sheet cake under fluorescent light, a banner that said 60 and fabulous with the glitter already shedding onto the floor. My whole extended family was there, aunts and uncles and second cousins, plus half the neighborhood. And the minister and his wife. My mother held court near the cake, in a new dress, accepting her birthday like tribute, telling anyone who listened the story she loved most. Well, after Frank passed, somebody had to keep this family standing. I just did what I had to do. She caught my eye across the room and gave me the look, the one that meant, get ready. You're up soon. Derek was already loose and grinning. Brooke hovered near our mother, basking in the borrowed glow. Haley stood off to the side and gave me a small private nod. When the cake was cut, my mother tapped her glass with a fork. The room hushed, and she said with a unanimous little wave in my direction, I think my daughter, Clara, wants to say a few words. She's the one who put all this together. She's good at taking care of things. Polite applause rolled around the room. They were all waiting for the grateful daughter. They were waiting for thank you. I stood up, and I felt strangely perfectly calm. The way I feel when a long set of books finally balances. I didn't have a glass in my hand. I had the stack of envelopes, and I tapped my pen. Once, the only sound in the quiet room. I brought something a little more accurate than a toast. Thank you all for coming to celebrate my mother, I said. And I meant it. I let the room settle into the warmth of that for a second before I went on. 60 years is worth celebrating. Then I picked up the first envelope. Mom, this is for you. I walked it over and set it in her hands. It's the deed to the house. It's been in my name for 6 years, since I bought it from the bank after Dad died, so you wouldn't lose it. Tonight I'm signing it back to you. The house is yours again, free and clear of me. A confused murmur started up. This wasn't the toast anyone expected. My mother's smile froze in place. Along with the mortgage, I added, gently, which I've carried every month for 6 years. The papers inside explain how to assume it. You'll want to call the bank Monday. Then I picked up the next 2. Derek, Brooke. I set theirs down, in front of them on the table. Inside each of these is a complete record of what I've paid for this family. Every bill, every transfer, every month, going back 6 years. It's all there, to the penny. I didn't add anything. I didn't round up. I just wrote down what's true. The murmuring was spreading now. Aunts leaning to uncles. The neighbors going still. Derek had the envelope open, his face draining as he read his own number. Brooke hadn't moved. My mother was staring at the deed in her lap like it might bite. I kept my voice level, almost kind. Because I wasn't there to wound. I was there to be clear. For 6 years, I said. I was told I should be grateful. I've heard it my whole life. So I just wanted tonight, with everyone here who loves this family, to make the record clear about who exactly was carrying whom. My mother came up out of her chair. So fast it scraped back and tipped. The clatter of it was the loudest thing in the room. How dare you, she said, her voice cracked high and ugly across the hall. How dare you do this to me at my own party? In front of everybody. You've always been like this, Clara. Jealous, dramatic, desperate for attention. The D slid off her lap onto the floor. She didn't even look at it. You think a stack of papers makes you better than your own family? Derek was on his feet now too, the envelope crushed in his fist. A few receipts, he spat. And you think you're better than us. You always thought you were better than us. Brooke had finally opened hers. I watched the color go out of her face as she found the rent total. 4 years of it. And she started to cry, but it was the panicked kind of crying, not the sorry kind. The whole room was frozen. Every neighbor and cousin and the poor minister watching my mother scream the word grateful across a church fellowship hall on her 60th birthday. And here's the thing I want you to understand, because it's the only thing that mattered. I never raised my voice. Not once. I stood there, in the center of all that noise, and I felt the stillest I have ever felt in my life. I waited until my mother ran out of breath, and then I said quietly, so they had to go silent to hear me. I'm not asking for thanks. I'm not even asking for an apology. I'm just done paying to be your punchline. A neighbor near the back, an old man who knew my father, said, it's just loud enough to carry. Lord, the pathetic one was the one holding the whole thing up, and I watched it move across the room, face by face. The truth finally landing where the laughing used to be. Haley crossed the floor and came and stood beside me. She took my hand. I set the last envelope down on the table, the one with the schedule in it, the dates. Everything stopped. I didn't slide it across dramatically. I just placed it the way I place anything when I'm done with it. Then I turned to the room, not to my mother, not to Derek, but to all of them, the aunts and the neighbors, and the minister who'd baptized me. Thank you again for coming to celebrate, Mom, I said. My voice was even, almost warm. I mean, that 60 years is a lot. I picked up my coat from the back of my chair. The painters stop on the first, I said to the room. Simply like reporting the weather. The house is yours now, Mom. I hope it's everything you've been telling everyone it was. My mother opened her mouth, but nothing came out that she'd want a room full of witnesses to hear, so she said nothing. I buttoned my coat. Haley walked me to the door, past tables of people who weren't laughing anymore, and I felt their eyes. And for once, I didn't mind them. Outside, the cold hit clean and good. I pulled my phone from my pocket out of habit. The screen was dark. There was not a single message on it that I needed to open. I put it back. I got in my car and I drove the 15 minutes home to my own house, the small one with my name on the deed and nobody else's expectations inside. I didn't slam a single door on my way out of that hall. I just finally stopped holding one open. The fallout came in a shape I expected, just faster. My mother called the bank that Monday, like I told her to, and learned what the house actually cost every month. She couldn't carry it alone. So she refinanced what she could. Cut her spending to the bone for the first time in her adult life, and stayed in the house, paying her own way at 60. Derek sold the truck within a month. Turns out he could have been making the payments himself for years. He just never had to. Brooke moved to a smaller apartment across town. Last I heard, she took a part-time job at the front desk of a dentist's office. Her first real work in years. And the story they told, of course, was that I'd abandoned my family, that I humiliated my poor, widowed mother at her own birthday. Some relatives believed it. The ones who weren't in the room. The ones who were in the room, who'd watched my mother scream and read the totals over Derek's shoulder. Those people went quiet, and a little careful around her after that. I didn't defend myself to anybody. I'd learned that lesson finally. The ledger said everything I needed to say, and it didn't need my help. When one aunt called to lecture me about forgiveness and family and being the bigger person, I didn't argue. I just said, this isn't something I'm looking for input on, and I wished her a good night. And I hung up. No, is a complete sentence. I recommend it. It closes an account faster than anything I know. Life got quieter. And then it got good. I took on 2 new clients. Because for the first time in 6 years, I had the bandwidth, money, and the evenings. I took a whole weekend off and drove up to the lake. Didn't bring a single spreadsheet. I'd forgotten what my own time felt like in my hands. About a month after the party, my phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Diane. Just one line. You did the right thing. I'm sorry I didn't. I looked at it for a while. It was true, and it was real, and it cost her something to send. But it wasn't enough to undo years of laughing a bit late and looking down at her plate. And we both knew that. So I wrote back, thank you, Diane, I appreciate it, and I left it there. I didn't invite her back into my life. Understanding a person doesn't obligate you to keep paying their tab in money or in chances. The one relationship I did keep was Haley. She calls me now, not when she needs something, just to talk. And sometimes she drives over and we make dinner and she tells me about school. It goes both ways. The way it's supposed to. That's the only ledger I keep with family anymore, the kind where both columns actually fill in. The rest of them have my number. They know where I live. They know the door isn't locked exactly. It's just that I'm not standing in it, holding it open with my own 2 hands anymore. If they want to come through it, they can do what I did. They can carry their own weight. I learned something at that party I wish I'd known at 28. Generosity isn't a debt the people you love get to collect from you forever. And the day you finally sit down and balance the account, you find out very quickly who valued you and who only ever valued the money. That's my story. 6 years of silence, 4 envelopes, 1 birthday that finally told the truth. If you've ever been the one quietly keeping everyone afloat, the dependable one nobody bothers to thank, let this be your sign. You're allowed to stop. You can set the way down and still be a good person. If this story reached you tonight, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment and tell me your version. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Karma Court Files, because the best verdicts are the ones you never see coming.